YouTube? We are about to get into Nehemiah chapter 7. If you haven't already, go back and watch chapters 1 through 6 because it may not make sense to you. Today I'm reading from the CSB version, and I just want to recap a little bit about chapter 6. Because we all know that at the end of chapter 6, there was a little bit of the antagonist situation going on. So basically at the end of chapter 6, the very last verse says, Tobiah sent letters to intimidate me. The very end of the last verse. We know that Tobiah was out to distract Nehemiah at the end of chapter 6. He sent messengers. He sent letters. He hired a fake prophet to try to get him and distract him from working on the wall. But Nehemiah said, I don't have time for that today. I have a mission. I have a goal. So let's continue to read chapter 7 and find out what happens next. Chapter 7, verse 1. When the wall had been rebuilt and I had doors installed, the gatekeepers, singers, and Levites were appointed. Then I put my brother Hanani in charge of Jerusalem, along with Hananiah, commander of the fortress, because he was a faithful man who feared God more than most. I said to them, do not open the gates of Jerusalem until the sun is hot, and let the doors be shut and securely fastened while the guards are on duty. Station the citizens of Jerusalem as guards, some at their posts and some at their homes. The city was large and spacious, but there were few people in it, and no houses had been built yet. Then my God put it into my mind to assemble the nobles, the officials, and the people to be registered by genealogy. I found the genealogical record of those who came back first, and I found the following written on it. These are people of the province who went up among the captive exiles deported by King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon. Each of them returned to Jerusalem and Judah to his own town. They came with Zerubbabel, Jeshua, Nehemiah, Azariah, Ramiah, Nahamani, Mordecai, Bilshan, Mispereth, Bigvai, Nahum, and Baanah. And I'm just going to pause right there and go through a rerun of what we just read. So basically, Nehemiah is explaining that he went ahead and finished building the wall. He had the doors installed. He had gatekeepers. And he said that he put his brother Hanani in charge of Jerusalem because he was someone who was faithful and he feared God more than most. It's very obvious that when you're doing things, and especially for the purpose of God, if you have to appoint people, you always want to appoint people who fear God and who trust in him and who believe in his word. So it was really good that he used someone who he trusted. Then he gave specific instructions that they should not open the gates of Jerusalem until the sun is hot, and let the doors be shut and securely fastened while the guards are on duty. So he made very specific directions to them. He said the city was large and spacious, and there were few people in it, and no houses had been built yet. So we kind of have an idea of what's going on. So he said God put it into his mind to assemble the nobles, the officials, and the people to be registered by genealogy. And that's what we're getting ready to read right now. Verse 8. The number of Israelite men included Parash descendants 2,172. Shephatiah's descendants 372. Era's descendants 652. Pahath Moab's descendants, Jeshua and Joab's descendants 2,818. Elam's descendants 1,254. Zattu's descendants 845. Zakai's descendants 760. Binuai's descendants 648. Babai's descendants 628. Azgaz's descendants 2,322. Adonikim's descendants 667. Bigvai's descendants 2,067. Adin's descendants 655. Ater's descendants of Hezekiah 98. Hashum's descendants 328. Basai's descendants 324. Harif's descendants 112. Gibeon's descendants 95. Bethlehem's and Netophath's men, oh y'all, forgive me for the pronunciation, 188. Ananoth's men 128. Beth Asmaveth's men 42. Kiriath Jearim, Shephirah's and Beeroth's men 743. Kiriath Jearim's, Shephirah's, and Beeroth's men, 743. Ramah's and Geba's men, 621. Michmas's men, 122. Bethel and Ai's men, 123. The other Nebo's men, 52. The other Elam's people, 1,254. Harim's people, 320. Jericho's people, 345. Lod's, Hadid's, and Ono's people, 721. Sinah's people, 3,930. Ooh, I gotta breathe. All right, let's continue. Verse 39. The priests included Jediah's descendants of the house of Jeshua, 973. Immer's descendants, 1,052. Pashur's descendants, 1,247. Harim's descendants, 1,017. The Levites included Jeshua's descendants of Kadmiel, Hodavah's descendants, 74. The singers included Asaph's descendants, 148. The gatekeepers included Shalom's descendants, Ater's descendants, Talmon's descendants, Akub's descendants, Hatita's descendants, Shobai's descendants, 138. The temple servants included Zihah's descendants, Hasupha's descendants, Tabea's descendants, Keros's descendants, Sia's descendants, Padan's descendants, Lebanon's descendants, Hagabah's descendants, Shalmai's descendants, Hanan's descendants, Gidel's descendants, Gahar's descendants, Rea's descendants, Rezin's descendants, Nokoda's descendants, Gazam's descendants, Uzzah's descendants, Paseah's descendants, Basai's descendants, Meunim's descendants, Nephishis's descendants, all right, Bakbuk's descendants, Hakufa's descendants, Harher descendants, Baslis descendants, Mahida's descendants, Harsha's descendants, Barkos's descendants, Sisera's descendants, Tima's descendants, Neziah's descendants, and Hatifa's descendants. I am so glad that I was not born during this era. All right, verse 57. The descendants of Solomon's servants included Sotai's descendants, Sophareth's descendants, Perida's descendants, Jalah's descendants, Darkon's descendants, Gidel's descendants, Shephatiah's descendants, Hatil's descendants, Pokereth Hazibaim's descendants, Amon's descendants, all the temple servants and the descendants of Solomon's servants, 392. The following are those who came from Telmelah, Telharsha, Cherub, Adon, and Immer, but were unable to prove that their ancestral families and their lineage were Israelite. Delaiah's descendants, Tobiah's descendants, and Nekoda's descendants, 642. And from the priests, the descendants of Hobiah, the descendants of Hakaz, and the descendants of Barzillai, who had taken from the daughters of Barzillai the Gileadite, and who bore their name. These searched for their entries in the genealogical records, but they could not be found, so they were disqualified from the priesthood. The governor ordered them not to eat the most holy things until there was a priest who could consult the Urim and Thummim. The whole combined assembly numbered 42,360, not including their 7,337 male and female servants, as well as their 245 male and female singers. They had 736 horses, 245 mules, 435 camels, and 6,720 donkeys. Some of the family heads contributed to the project. The governor gave 1,000 gold coins, 50 bowls, and 530 priestly garments to the treasury. Some of the family heads gave 20,000 gold coins and 2,200 silver minas to the treasury of the project. The rest of the people gave 20,000 gold coins, 2,000 silver minas, and 67 priestly garments. The priests, Levites, gatekeepers, temple singers, some of the people, temple servants, and Israel settled in their towns. Wow. Sometimes reading genealogy and lineage in the Bible could be a little bit tedious. It may seem like, why do I need to know this information? But it's really important to know about genealogy to understand the bigger story. You know what I mean? So let's go ahead and get into the background because I really want to know some more about this. Nehemiah's command to open the gates of Jerusalem only during the busiest hours of the day helped to minimize the threat to the city. Their adversaries would be less likely to invade when the city was full of people. In order to begin bringing residents into the city, Nehemiah initiated a census to determine which families could verify their lineage as full-blooded Jews. So just pausing after that, right? Nehemiah made specific commands to only open the gates during the busiest hours of the day because he wanted to minimize the threats to the city. All right. He said that anyone who was against or in opposition, such as Tobiah and his little gang, they would be less likely to invade when the city was full of a whole bunch of people. Okay. Now, Nehemiah also initiated a census based on genealogy and lineage, and that's what we just read about. So he basically wanted to make sure that anybody who enters this city was a full-blooded Jew, and that's what we just read through. All right, so it says Nehemiah made use of the census list that Ezra utilized on the return of the first exiles with Sheshbazzar, Zerubbabel, and Jeshua around 538 BC. It says to see Ezra 2. The list reproduced in Nehemiah 7 has only minor differences from Ezra's list. So you guys can go ahead and look that up and see how similar or different they may be.